I'm J.R. Church. Welcome to today's webcast. I want to share something with you that you may or may not know about. In Judaism, the rabbis have a way of searching the scriptures for dates. Yes, they are the all-time date setters. Well, in the Torah, that is the first 5 books of the Bible, the rabbis centuries ago began to number the verses. And they start with Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and that's 1. And verse 2 is 2. But when they come to the first verse of the second chapter, they just continue right on with their numerical numbering of the verses. When they come down to Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verse 23, for example. And let's begin with verse 22. That would be over 5,000 verses. For example, chapter 29 and verse 1 is the 5,675th verse of the Bible. Okay? And that would be comparable to 1915. And of course, in our Bible, it says the Palestinian Covenant. Well, we know what was going on in 1915. World War I was going on. And in 1917, we have the liberation of Jerusalem and the taking of the land under the British mandate by at the request of Lord Balfour and at the hands of General Edmund Allenby. When you get over to verse 22, that's comparable to 1936. All right? And this is what the verse says. Now understand that if these verses are numbered according to years, then something about that verse needs to be fulfilled in that particular year. Now, I cannot say that it happens for every year, but it is a fascinating study, and it was done by the rabbis, okay? I'm just the messenger. I'm here to tell you and to look at some of these. So think of 1936 when verse 22 says, "So that the generation to come of your children that shall rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come from a far land shall say, when they shall see the plagues of that land and the sicknesses which the Lord hath laid upon it." Now here he's talking about a future generation. Could it be the generation of 1936? And people will look at their plight and say, could it be that the Lord caused all this? Verse 23, think of 1937. "And that the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning, that it is not sown, nor beareth, nor any grass groweth therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath." Now, please understand that in 1937, the land of Israel, or Palestine as some called it back then, the Holy Land, was barren. Yes. Swamps in the north, deserts in the south, few trees, the land was barren. In fact, and it was somewhere around the 1860s that Mark Twain went to the Holy Land, and he said, "Who would want to live here? There's not a tree in sight." Now, they did plant some trees in around 1917, 1915, I don't know, somewhere in the early part of the century, the second decade of the 20th century. They planted some trees up north to get rid of the mosquitoes and to drain the swamps. These were in these little kibbutz, these farming communities that the Jews had. Nevertheless, the land was basically barren. And so the people say the land is barren. That's verse 23. Think of 1937. Here's the verse the rabbis say would be for 1938. "Even all nations shall say, Wherefore hath the Lord done this unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger?" Now think of 1939. You remember Adolf Hitler started World War II. By the way, he had been persecuting the Jews even before then. But in 1939, we have this intense effort by the Nazis to destroy the Jewish people. Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. Oh, those dirty Jews, they deserve what they're getting. You understand what I'm saying? Now, I wasn't saying that. That's what the world was saying. And Adolf Hitler was touting that as well. So we think of 1940 when I read verse 26. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not, whom he had not given unto them. Verse 27, 1941, the death camps were in full swing. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. Verse 28, think of 1942, and the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation and cast them into another land as it is this day. Now I'm going to read verse 29. Think of 1943 and the death camps and the Jews loaded onto boxcars and hauled off to the death camps. The secret things belong unto the Lord. But those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. So, it was 1943 that the Jews began to wail and to cry and beg God to help them. They began to search for the Lord. There was even one newspaper headline that came out showing the persecution of the Jews and saying, "Where was God?" The secret things, he said, belong unto the Lord our God. Well, think of 1944 as we